So I get back to the title of the talk, and planning for food security. And I would say, in summary, that food security is no longer an issue of isolated disruption in a world of plenty. It is now an issue of creating pockets of calm in a world of scarcity. Or you could use pockets of abundance in a world of scarcity, or a traumatic world, or there's all kinds of different worlds. But this is a significant paradigm shift, and this is what we have to do. And so we're planning for that. Instead of food security in previously was just trying to solve localized problems. This is a global systemic issue that we have to solve locally. I believe we have to solve globally if we can, but we at least have to solve it locally. So I would put forward the question, what do you need to create food security within a region? What are the things that you do? What do you need? And the first thing you need is you need the food growers, the producers. You need to have either them within your region as part of you, as part of your community, whether it's a city or country or a village, or the continent or European Union. We need the growers to produce food, because the closer it is, the closer you are to food, the more secure it is. That could also be farmers on the edge of a city, or it could also be yourself, or people like you, or people like you that are growing food for you. We also need food growing research, and governments have been very good, and extension services have been very good, and agricultural departments have been very good, and Chagas have been very good at trying to define best practice for food production within the system that it is. But that system has changed completely, because that old system had cheap energy, and we weren't really worried about climate change, and we weren't really worried about food security, we weren't really worried about all these different things, and commodity prices were very cheap, or food prices were very cheap. We're in a completely different system. And so we need to have best practice. We need to reevaluate what best practice is. And that means going back to the farm and trying out everything. Going back to community gardens and trying things out. Going back to small scale gardens. And what is the best way to grow food within a certain context? Whether it's a small back garden or out in a field within a certain region. Without energy, without fossil fuel inputs, without all these issues. We also need a place, I believe, that we can store that information. That information can be kept. Not just information, but knowledge and resources. And this would be seed saving. Right? Our seed savers are a very, very valuable resource, because they're saving and preserving and making available a very, very valuable resource, instead of having that resource both lost, either because no one's maintaining it, or it has been bought up by one of those big, ugly multinational corporations. So having this kind of stuff, but also the knowledge and the dissemination of that knowledge and information. I would also say that, and this is, I think, one of the more important aspects of it, is that we need what I would call a food security roadmap. And the way I've been starting to look at it is that instead of saying we need more organic farming, or we need more gardens in the city, or we need more, a little bit more, 10% more of this and 5% more of this, and set these different targets and trying to achieve these targets, what we should be thinking of is, well, we want to be food secure by 2015, 2012, 2020, pick a date. And to get to that date, and what does food security mean? Find out what is food security, what would it mean to be food secure in that context? How much of the food are you actually producing locally, and where is the rest of it coming from? And is that a secure supply line? And associated to that is also the ecological impact, and the climate impact, and the energy impact, or the energy demand of that system. And then work backwards and say, okay, how do we need to get to that point? And nobody has done this. I don't think anyone has done this. In transition towns initiatives, fantastic initiatives in communities around the world, is spreading like wildfire. They have energy descent plans, and we need food descent plans, or food ascent plans. We need to have the same kind of thing. And we also, within a community, or within a city, or within a country, we need what I would call a food policy council. And this is a grouping of people from all the different players, all the different organizations who are involved in these systems, coming together to try to implement that plan. Trying to get the governments to change, trying to figure out, okay, do we need education? Is that the key component? How is education going to be provided? How can we make sure that people are educated or made aware of these things? How do we transform? How do we negotiate with the Irish farmers? How do we get and change the systems? We need an entity that actually is able to do that. But a more important aspect of that Food Policy Council, I think, would be managing and creating what I would call a food emergency plan. And we don't know when the boats are not going to come in, are going to stop. We don't know when the trucker strikes are going to go. And we don't have a plan. We've got a plan for Sellafield, if something happens for Sellafield, but we don't have a plan to how to feed the city for a short-term period. And these are things that I think that we probably should have. But then there's also, if systems change really dramatically, as opposed to a short blip, if systems really collapse dramatically, we need to accelerate, just like they did in Cuba. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to be food secure in 15 years, we need to be food secure now, right? Because there's nothing coming in. And so how to make that transition very, very quickly. And so these are the 6 aspects that I would say that we need to be able to, in combination, to be able to create food security. And I've started to look at how we might actually set that up. And I see that the bottom 3, the food growing groups, Food Commons Resource and the Food Growing Research, those are sort of bottom-up knowledge and implementation. So this is broad spectrum of knowledge, broad spectrum of resource-based, broad spectrum of people actually doing the work, people actually growing. And so this is bottom-up implementation and how they might interrelate. And then there's a top-down, which is Food Policy Council, the Food Security Roadmap, and the Emergency Food Plan. And this is an attempt by myself and other people in Feasta to be able to say, okay, what would this actually look like? And how would we actually achieve that?